Hi, this is Janet Eifred. This is my third video on decimal numbers. In this video we're going to multiply and divide decimal numbers. There's also a part 1 and a part 2. Okay, let's get started with timesing by 10 and 100. When you times by 10, you're going to take the decimal point and move it to the right one space. When you times by 100, you're going to take the decimal point and move it 2 spaces. Let's see how that works. Let's do 0.4 times 10. So we have the 0.4, and we're going to think we move the decimal point 1 to the right because why do we move it to the right? Because our answer will become bigger. So that point goes that way, and it will now be after the 4. So can you see that it will be 4? Now there will be an invisible point there, but it will stay invisible, okay? Because let's think about it. 4 is the same as 4.0, or we can have another 0. Think of 4 pounds. Can be written like that or like that. Yeah, it's still just 4. Okay, if we take 0.4 and we times it with 100, the point will move 1, 2. Okay, what's going to be quite helpful is just to write a 0 there and move the point 1, 2. So it will become 40 point. In other words, just the 40. We don't need that point, okay? So that is our answer 40. Now when we multiplied, our answer got bigger. What is going to happen when we divide? We get a smaller answer. In other words, where are we going to move our point? Our number gets smaller if the point move back. The point will move back 1 when you divide by 10. Now how will the point move when you divide by 100? 1, 2. It's going to move 2 spaces. Okay, let's check the 0.2. If we take that point and we move it back 1, that point is going to sit before that 0. We can add a 0 in there if we want, and it's going to be 0.02. Okay? There have to be a point before that point. 0. There have to be a 0 before the point, always. Okay, so if you have 0.2, it's actually quite useful now to go and add 2 zeros at the front. We don't usually write a number like this, but it's just to help us now. We're moving it back 1, 2. So my new points are there. So it's going to be 0.002. Okay? Okay, it's your turn. Pause the video, you do the rest. There you go, there's your answers. Pause the video and check. Can you see the 4.5? You moved it back 1. It was now before the 4. There it is before the 4. You need a 0 before. You moved it back 2 to divide by 100. 1, 2. So it's 0.045. Okay? Times by 10. There, you take the point and move it on 1, and there comes a 0 there. You times by 100. Point, move it 1, 2. That's why we add 2 zeros, okay? Pause the video and check. We are moving to multiplying decimal numbers, which isn't 10 and 100, where you can't just move the point. How will we do this? Ignore the decimal points and multiply the numbers. Then you will count the decimal numbers in the calculation, put the numbers in of decimal places in the answer. Okay, let's look here at number 3. We're going to say 3 times 4 is 12. And then we think there's one number after the point, so we need one number after the point, so my point goes there. Let's look at number 4 here. 0.3 times 0.4. 3 times 4 is 12. We have there one number and there one number after the point. In other words, we've got 2 numbers after the point. we need two numbers after the point in the answer. There's one number, there's another number, so my point will go there. Before the point I need a 0. Okay? Now you try number 6, pause the video. Okay, now we look at it together. 3 times 4 is 12. How many numbers do we have after the point? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, from the back. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you need your point. Okay, now we've got 4 numbers after the point and 4 numbers after the point. We need a 0 before the point. Okay, remember from the back. Okay, pause the video, you do the rest. Now this number 21 might be difficult. So let's look at that. First of all, ignore everything else and say 25 times by 3. And what is that? That is 75. Now we have 250. 250, so there's a 0, there's a 0, okay? As I showed you in the multiplication 1 video. If you don't understand this, go back there. There's lots of practice worksheets you can do there. Okay, now we have a point in that number. So let's just rewrite this. 250 times 0.03 is equal to, it's the 750, but now we've put the point here. We moved the point back 2, so we need to move the point back 2 here as well. So it will be 7.5. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, pause the video if you haven't yet and do the rest. There you go, there's your answers. Please pause the video and check them. We're moving on now to similar sums, but more greater numbers we use. And what I do is I give you the answer, so you don't have to go and work out the answer. But all I want you to practice is now to put in the points at the right place, okay? So if you do this one, you would think, if I ignore the points, the answer is 16488, as it is above. But now I think I put the points in and I've got 1, 2, 3 on this side. So I need 1, 2, 3 from the back on this side. So that's my answer. Okay. This one again a bit tricky because it ends in a 0. So we can think 53 times 9. If we add a 0 here, we add a 0 there. And then we think if we put the point there, we put the point there. In other words, this one is 477. Okay, pause the video, do the rest. And there you go, there's your answers. Please pause the video and check them. Okay, now we're going to look at a quick way to times by 0.5, 1.5 and 2.5 and so on. We know, can you remember from fractions when we work on fractions? This is anyway also something most people know. Is that 0.5 is a half. Why is it a half? Because it's 5 over 10 and then it's half. Can you remember that? Look back at my fraction videos and workbooks. So we know 0.5 is a half. So if you say 0.5 times 25, you can just as well say half times 25. 24. Okay? What is half of 24 is? 12. So what do you think would be 24 times 0.5? Let's check it quickly with our other method. We ignore the point and we just say 24 times 5. Let's quickly do it this way. 5 times 4, 20. 5 times 2, 10, 11, 12. 120. The answer is 120. We put the point there, so the point goes there, so the answer is 12. In other words, there we've proved it. it is a half of the number is the same as 0.5 times the number. Now what will you do if you times by 1.5? It will be 1.5 the number. Once 24 is 24 and a half 24 is 12. So 24 plus 12, 36. What would be 25 times 2.5, do you think? It is 24 plus another 24, so it's double, twice that, and it's half of it. Yeah, and 24 plus 24 is 48, plus the 12 is 60. Okay, pause the video, you try the rest. And there you go, there's the answers. Now you can multiply any decimal numbers. You can multiply by 10 and 100 and even 1,000. It is in the worksheets. By moving the point, you can multiply any decimal numbers together, and you know how of some fast ways to do that. So now we're moving to division. And first of all, we're going to do dividing a decimal number by a whole number. Now there's 3 videos that I have and workbooks on division, so you can look back at them if you don't know how to divide. You might know that 63 divided by 9, that is 7. Now to work out where your point go, I would always recommend you think of it in this way, because if you think of it in this way, bus-stop method, you're not going to make mistakes. 9 goes in 6, it cannot, so it's 0. And then your remainder is 6, and then 9 goes in 63, 7. Okay, you cannot make a mistake like that. Pause the video, you try the rest. Let's just do that one together. We know that 24 divided by 2 is 12, hopefully, but we can do it like this. 2 goes into 1 point, 2 goes in 4, 2. So there for sure we know the point goes there. Okay. What would be 0.11 divided by 5? Did you get that one? 0.11 divided by 5. Now I know 5 cannot go in 11, so I already know I need a 0 there. 5 goes in 0, 0. 5 goes... Okay, point line up, very important. 5 goes in 1, it cannot. And my remainder is 1. 5 goes in 11 how many times? 5, and the remainder is 1. 5 goes in 10 how many times? Twice. 5 goes in 0, 0. 5 goes in 1, 0. 5 goes in 11, not 5 times. 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. There's one remainder. 5 goes in 10 2 times. So it is 0.022. Okay. Okay, pause the video, you try the rest. And there you go, there's your answers. Please check them. Pause the video to check. We're moving on. And now we are going to do dividing a decimal number by a decimal number. Now let's look at the first one. If we say 1.8, if we think of the bus stop method, 1.8 divided by 0.03. Well, I certainly don't know my 0.03 times table, and I don't want to know it. So I don't want to do this. What I would like to do is something like, for instance, 18 divided by 3. That's something I like to see, because I already know the answer is 6. And I know the 6 stand on top of the 8, because 3 cannot go in 1, so we can, if we want, use a little placeholder there. So I like to see this. I like to see the 3 outside. Or even if I had a point there, I know that there goes a point, so that I can be happy with. If that number was a decimal, that's easy to work with. So we want this number a whole number. In other words, we want the second number must be a whole number. That one must be a whole number. For the minute, let's write it as a fraction. 1.8 divided by 0.03. Now let's think we want that to be a 3. How do we get it a 3? We move the point 1, 2. In other words, we times with 100. And we're going to times with 100 on that side as well. And what is 1.8 times 100? Move the point 1, 2. It is 180. So there I have a sum which says 180 divide 3. And 3 goes in 18, 6. And 3 goes in 0, 0. So my answer is 60. And that is the answer. That is the answer you will get when you put this sum in your calculator. So no need to put any points back, nothing. It's totally different from multiplication. Don't think of it in the same sentence, multiplying and dividing decimals. It's very, very different, okay? Let's think. We want the second number a whole number. We want that to be a 12. In other words, how do we get it at 12? We times by 10. So in other words, we need to times this by 10 because it is the same as saying times 10 over times 10, which is times 1. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 10 over 10 is 1. Okay, so we times by 10 there, we times by 10 there, so it's 24 divided by 12. And we know that 24 divided by 12 is 2. Okay, pause the video, you try the rest. Just to do this one with you. 9 divided by 0.09, we're going to think we times with 100 this one to get a 9. In other words, we times with 100 this one and we get 900. And 900 divided by 9 gives us 100. And that is your answer to that original sum, okay? Pause the video, you do the rest. And there you go, there's your answers. Please check them. Try to see this as fractions, and you times the top and bottom number with the same number. In other words, it's equivalent fractions. It's equivalent fractions, in other words, it's basically the same. That's therefore it gives the same answer. Okay, pause the video to check. Now there's just more practice. And here we put the dividing by 100 and by 10 also in. So remember there you want this number to be a 7 times by 10. And if you times that one by 10, you times this one by 10. Here you would just go and you would move your point. Now think about this. Will you move your point forward or will you move your point back? You divide, so you want a smaller answer. In other words, you will move the point back 1, 2. Okay? Okay, pause the video, you try this. There you go, there's your answers. Please check. We're moving on now. And now we just throw our times and divide. We mix them up. So we check, do you remember how to do this? Okay, pause the video, it's your turn. Now let's look at, I'm sure you could do 100 times 12, it's 12 with 2 zeros. You can think of it as 1 times 12 is 12, and I add 2 zeros to that. Now if you have 0.8 and you divide it by what number to get a 1? You are going to say, what will give me 1 is if that number is exactly the same as that number. In other words, it is 0.8. We know that 0.8 divided by 0.8, it's exactly the same. It gives us a 1. We know that 11 over 11 is 1. 12 over 12 is 1, yes? The same number divided by the same number give me 1. Okay, now number 4 here. Think 3 times what will give me 9? We can just think of that. It's 3, isn't it? Now I've got 1, 2 numbers after the point. This side I have 1 number after the point, so I need another number after the point. In other words, if I put the point there, I've got 2 numbers after the point, so I can do that. And just for the record, we could write that as a square. 0.3 squared is the same as 0.3 times 0.3. Now I've had this a lot that students will tell me this is 0.9. It's not, it is 0.09, don't forget it. Times by 10, move the point on. And so on. Okay, your turn. Pause the video. There you go, there's your answers. Please check them. Pause the video to check. And now for the last one, we are going to take away, add, times and divide. We're going to mix all of those up and we're going to see, can you remember how to do all of those? Now in the part 2 of the video we looked at adding and subtracting decimals. Can you remember how to do that? I have so many students who just struggle with this. They can do it when you work on the topic. Whenever you get back, they forgot. 1.6 take away. Let's just do that one together. If you want to do that on your own, please do that now. Pause the video. 1.6 take away. We need to line up the points. 0.06. Now we can take away. Now you can put a placeholder there. It's so much easier with that placeholder. Be careful when you work with 6s and 0s that they don't all look the same. Remember to close those 0s and to make those 6s with a long tail at the top. Okay, can we take 6 from 0? No, we cannot. We have to borrow from the 6 and we get a 5. Then we get a 10 here, and we can take 6 from 10, we get a 4. 5 take away 0 is 5. We line up the point, and 1 take away 0 is 1. So my answer there is 1.54. Do you remember how to add decimals? Please pause the video and try that one. We can do that one together now. 9.1 plus 9.9093. No, I've got too many 9s there now. 9.093. Okay, quite useful to add a 0 and a 0 there. We're adding 0 plus 3, 3, 9, 1 plus nothing, 1. The points line up. 9 plus 9, 18. So it's going to be 18.193. Okay. Pause the video, you try to multiply these numbers. Do you know how to multiply this? Do you know that you should ignore your point? You should say, what is 4 times 45? Let's make 45 times 4. Now if I do this, think of multiplication 1 where we multiplied quickly. We can double and double again. What's double 45? Double 45 is 90, isn't it? And if we double the 90 again, we get 180. So that's a good answer. We could have done 45 times 4 also. 4 times 5, 20. 4 times 5, 16. Plus the 2 is 18. So that's another way to do it. You say 4 times 45 is 180. And now we check. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. 4 numbers after the point. We've got from the back 1 to 3. We need another one, so a point and a 0. And then we can really get rid of that 0 because it isn't necessary to have it. Okay, pause the video, you do the rest. Just quickly this one. We want that to be a whole number, we want it to be a 5. In other words, what did we do? We times by 10. So therefore we need to times by 10 there to cancel it out. And that gives us 0.6. Now you've got 0.6 divided by 5. Go to your bus stop method. 5 goes in 0, 0. 5 goes in 6, 1, remainder 1, so we need a 0 there. 5 goes in 10, twice. We had a point there, so we need a point there. In other words, 0.12. Okay, pause the video now, I'm really finished, and now we're going to move on to the answers. And there you go, there's your answers. Please pause the video and check it. Okay, we've also reached the end of this video. So thank you so much for listening, and please download the decimal workbook if you want more practice on this very important topic. Can be very tricky if you throw it all together. I spend a lot of time on this teaching my students decimal numbers, and I tend to forget it. You need to keep practicing and working on this regularly. And then please also watch the other videos on division or multiplication, all of them to become better in your mental maths. Thank you for listening.